Hello everybody, my name is Robies and welcome to a new episode of Assassin's Creed The Real History. In this series, I compare events in a selected character's life within one of the Assassin's Creed games to the actual history the individual lived through. As always, beware of major story spoilers. For today's episode, we will be taking a look at the history of the de facto ruler of the Florentine Republic, Lorenzo de Medici. As is customary, I'll begin this episode by sharing with you his pre-game history, which will inform us on his background prior to AC2, then his in-game history, which you see depicted in the game, and lastly we will analyze the differences between what happens in the game to the real historical events of the individual's life. Starting with the pre-game history, Lorenzo was born on January 1st, 1449 to a wealthy and powerful family. His parents were Piero di Cosimo de Medici and Lucrezia Tornabuoni, with Lorenzo being one of their 5 children. His grandfather, Cosimo de Medici, was the first of the family to merge their control of the Medici Bank with the ruling of the Republic of Florence. He actually became one of the richest men in all of Europe and was a patron of the arts and funded many public projects for the city. During his youth, Lorenzo was given priority and was tutored by a diplomat, a philosopher, and a bishop, since he was considered the brightest of his parents' children. He also went on multiple diplomatic missions to various areas, such as Rome, to meet with important political figures. Following the death of his grandfather in 1464 and the death of his father in 1469, Lorenzo became the ruler of Florence, with his mother as his advisor. Using the same tactics that his preceding family members had, Lorenzo ruled Florence indirectly, using his associates to instigate payoffs, threats, and strategic marriages to keep him in control of the city. The Medici had many rivaling families who despised them for their success and power, and also because they had not been elected to this position, but had instead taken political control of the city through their own strategies. The most notable of these rivals were the Patsy family, who organized a plot to shift the control of Florence in their favor. It could generally be considered that it was at this point in his life where we first met the man who would be known as Lorenzo the Magnificent in Assassin's Creed 2 during the Patsy's attempted coup d'etat. What became known as the Patsy Conspiracy was an event on Easter Sunday, April 26, 1478, where members of the Patsy family and their allies, including the Archbishop of Pisa, attacked Lorenzo and his co-ruling brother, Giuliano, at the Cathedral of Florence with the consent of Pope Sixtus IV. Giuliano was killed, but Lorenzo was only stabbed and therefore survived, which made the conspiracy ultimately a failure, as was shown in AC2, although Ezio was not the reason why the conspiracy failed. The participants were then hunted down and brutally punished. The Pope reacted to the death of his conspiring allies by seizing as many Medici assets as possible, excommunicating Lorenzo, and placing Florence under an interdict. When this did not have much effect, the Pope made an alliance with Naples so that they would attack the Florentine Republic. Following an extended war without much of a power shift, Lorenzo went to Naples and negotiated until a diplomatic solution was reached and the fighting came to an end. Using this to his advantage, Lorenzo also changed some constitutional laws within Florence, which allowed him to gain further control of the city. After this was all resolved, Lorenzo once again proved his diplomatic abilities by keeping a good relationship with the northern Italian states, the country of France, the Holy Roman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire, which led his wealth to grow even further as their trading networks expanded. Other than his diplomatic abilities, Lorenzo was also known for his patronage. Like his grandfather, he was a strong supporter of the arts, and his court included many artists, including Verrocchio, Da Vinci, Botticelli, and Michelangelo. He helped many artists find new patrons and expanded the Medici library his grandfather had begun, filling it with many classical works and those concerning humanism and other topics. He even used some of these elements to aid his diplomacy, such as having certain artists paint the murals of the Sistine Chapel, which aided in solidifying an alliance with Pope Sixtus IV. He and his wife, whom he had married by proxy in February of 1469, had 10 children together, with one of the more recognizable ones being Piero di Lorenzo de Medici, who would eventually gain the name Piero the Unfortunate when he ruled Florence years later. He also adopted his brother, Giuliano's son, Giulio, following the death of his father in the Patsy Conspiracy. This adopted son would eventually become Pope Clement VII in 1523. In the later years of his life, Lorenzo began to experience some difficulties. Parts of the bank collapsed in reason of certain bad financial decisions, and this later led to further issues for the Medici family. At this time, Savonarola was also coming to power, and the Medici began to lose their hold on the city as the fanatical population started to side with the zealous preacher. It is said Lorenzo died either during the late night of April 8th or early morning of April 9th, 1492, at 43 years old. It is also said that Savonarola visited Lorenzo on his deathbed, and many rumors still remain concerning what was said in this final encounter. In summary, there were a few differences between Lorenzo de Medici's actual life and his representation in Assassin's Creed 2. Firstly, there was evidently no alliance between Lorenzo and the fictional Auditori family, either through banking or through the assassin's business. Secondly, although there are some conflicting opinions, it is generally accepted that the attack associated to the Patsy Conspiracy took place inside the cathedral instead of outside. Thirdly, Lorenzo was not saved by Ezio during this attack, but instead managed to escape on his own and have his allies retrieve the attackers for punishment, instead of having the assassin do this task. Lastly, there is no record of Lorenzo putting out assassination contracts for various adversaries to the Medici household, as was shown through the assassination contract mechanic in AC2. Other than the differences listed, Lorenzo's in-game representation was very interesting and rather historically correct, including the death of his brother during the bloody attack on Easter. His personality and behavior as the city's de facto ruler was a great interpretation of both the man's militaristic and strategic mind. And with that final fact, we have finished another episode of Assassin's Creed: The Real History. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, I highly recommend you try out one of the Assassin's Creed games. Thank you all for watching. Please leave any suggestions for future characters from any of the Assassin's Creed games that you'd like me to cover in the comment section below. Please rate, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in a future historical episode.
Che il Signore ci protegga.